Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joshablon, and welcome back to our series on humans. Now, today we are going to be covering how to draw a nose. So, I'm not a big fan of drawing noses, just because they're kind of tricky depending on the angle from which you're drawing them. They're probably easiest to draw if your person's facing straight forward out of the page. If they're facing from the side, it can get a little bit tricky. If it's kind of a 3/4 turn view, it can be even more tricky. So, we're just going to begin the first method that I'm going to show you for kind of drawing a nose from kind of just your person's facing forward out of the page is going to be just Reillys Method. So, if we imagine just our little nose part from Reillys Method, we have our glabella here, or this little trapezoid shape. If you remember from Reillys Method, there would be two lines just coming straight down from the bottom of the glabella. Well, those aren't terribly straight. That's a bit better. Yeah. All right. And then they're going to be coming down kind of to a triangle that we would have already had down there. And that's kind of signifying where the nose is. We would have kind of the ball of the nose kind of here. Its width should be the same distance from one of these lines to the other, these two lines here. And that should be the same all the way around. It should touch these bottom parts of the triangle. And then you're going to have these parts coming down from the bottom of the glabella, arcing down to the edges of your triangle. And so this is kind of one way to draw a nose. Eventually you'll get good enough at drawing noses that you won't have to draw this part out first every single time. I'll show you just kind of a quick little way that you can do it later. So, then what you want to do is you're going to want to kind of define specific places where they are. So I'm just going to make another layer. I'm going to turn down the opacity on our little Reillys Method drawing that we did here. So this is still going to be the ball of the nose. So that's very, very important to remember. Now, one thing that we're going to be having is kind of the frills of the nose and the nostrils, which are important to know. Like, it's important to know where they are. This ball of the nose, it's more important for shading, not really for putting like deep lines. Like, you're not wanting to do stuff like what I'm doing right now. You don't want to have that in the end. You don't want to have these dark lines coming down, forming kind of the shape of the nose. You really don't want to do stuff like that. If you're doing a cartoon style, you might want to, but for this kind of style, we are not going to be doing that. So, with our ball of the nose here, we're going to make the nostrils. The nostrils, they come probably around here. There isn't one definite place where they're going to be, so just try to do the best you can. Nostrils, of course, they're going to be rather dark. Try to make them as even as you can on both sides. Yeah. There we go. They're kind of your nostrils, just rather briefly where they are. I'm gonna redo some of this, I think. Yeah. Some people like to just go do one side of the nose and just do it all perfectly and then go and move on to the other side. I would not recommend that. Same thing with eyes. If you're drawing both the eyes on your person, don't go do one eye perfectly and then move on to doing the next eye, because something's going to be wrong. You might just think, oh yeah, it's because this part of the eye isn't finished yet and the other side has that finished. No, you want to be doing both sides together. So now that we have our nostrils, we can kind of tell where kind of the frills in our nose are going to be. They kind of come up in a nice curve. They'll come all the way around and partially into the nose. So it'll kind of be the same thing on this side. Not that low though. Yeah, it's difficult to finish one side and then go and do the other side just as well. It doesn't need to be perfectly round, but it should be pretty round. So there we go. There are kind of the frills of the nose that we have there. So you can kind of already kind of see the layout of the nose that we have here. So now what you're going to be doing mostly is just a little bit of shading to make your nose seem better. So we're going to just keep the Reillys method in the back. Very, very, very light. And I'm going to have the light coming in from this direction. Just kind of showing you exactly where the light source is coming from. So let's get in there. Let's get a bigger brush. I'm just going to quickly do a little bit rather briefly just to kind of show where some of the stuff is. Around the ball of the nose, you want to have a little bit of shading. Also up here, because it's kind of the bridge of the nose, you want this side to be darker. And also here on this part of the glabella, where it starts getting down towards where the eye is. You want that part to be rather heavily shaded as well. And that's kind of the majority of where your shading is going to be. So we're just going to quickly run in and blur a little bit of that shading, just so that we don't see all of those kind of harsh lines going through where we overlap it on all of our shading marks. There we go. There. You might want to also blur that kind of outside part of the frill, because in reality you aren't going to be seeing those lines as darkly as, say, with the nostrils. I'm going to get a little bit in here because that wasn't quite dark enough. There we go. Okay, now we're going to be focusing just on a little bit lighter areas of shading where we might want to just accent a little bit. So I'm just going to do a tiny bit more shading on the nostril because we lost a bit of that in the blurring. Maybe just a little ways kind of around the ball of the nose, because that's an important part to get. A little bit of shading coming off of there. Maybe just a tiny little bit of shading around here. A little bit of shading under this nose and this, or this part of the nose, the frill here. I'm just going to want a little bit under there. I'm going to get just a little bit over on this side, kind of where this frill is meeting kind of the cheek area. There we go. And it comes in and then kind of dips down. Dips into this area here, making it a bit darker. Alright, there we go. It's a little bit more well outlined and whatnot. Might want to do it just a little bit more shading in there. A little bit here. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that cross-hatching. Or just with the hatching method that we have. That we're kind of doing. To make it a little bit more realistic, you might want to kind of extend these just to show that there is a little bit of shadow here that's going to be cast onto the cheek. That's what I would personally do, so we're going to do that. And there we go. I suppose we could blur a little bit of it. So, that is just kind of very basically how to do kind of a nose using Reillys method. And now you can get rid of being able to see the stuff in the background. And so you can kind of see where we were going with that nose. One thing that I might change about this is down here you might want to just add a little bit more shading to the ball of the nose, because as it is kind of a sphere, you want to shade it as such. And so you might just add a little bit more shading around there, go through, blur it a little bit, just to kind of make sure that you understand that it's the ball of the nose. Now this is going to be dealing a lot with kind of the front view that you're going to be having. I mean, with like this method, or else the other side of the glomerulus, or the glabella. Keep getting those confused. Like there, you'll have your other side of the glabella here going in towards this part of the nose. Your bridge that you have here going down. You're going to have eyes and eye sockets kind of in these regions and whatnot. You'll have eyebrows that are extending up here, just to kind of let you know where everything is. You're going to have a little bit of shading to do down here, kind of where it's going down and going towards the lip. And so yeah, we are not going to be putting our face together in this video, though. We're going to be doing that in another video. So that is just very briefly how to do it just using Reillys method. I find this method is a little bit slow, but it's accurate. So that's one reason why I kind of like using it, but I just kind of memorized the layout and everything, so I know how that works. Now, you can just skip straight to this. You don't need to have this kind of background for it at all. You can just skip straight to this. It's really quite nice and easy, and yeah. Now, the kind of hard part with this is doing it from a side view. So when it comes from a side view, you understand there's kind of the slope of the forehead, and then here's where it kind of dips down a little bit. Now, this specific part is where you're going to be having your eyebrows coming out, and then it kind of extends onto the nose. Generally, the nose slope, I've noticed that it should be a little bit less steep than this slope here for your forehead. So it should just be a little bit less steep. Sometimes in the bridge of the nose, it kind of comes up and then down a little bit, and then it kind of bumps out a little bit for the ball of the nose. Yeah, I understand that this is a bit off. We'll tilt the axis a little bit just to make it a little bit straighter. There we go, that's a bit better. So there's kind of the ball of your nose, and it kind of goes back. You're going to have kind of your nostrils kind of there. You're still going to be seeing them in your side view. The frill kind of comes out and comes in. Now this nose is probably a bit too big for this person. But yeah, if you notice that something's too big, I would just suggest getting rid of it immediately and going forward and just making a new one. Now, if something's too big, it may just be because, like, the part of the nose that you're doing or whatnot, it may just not be that the bridge of the nose isn't long enough. So we'll kind of make the ball of the nose kind of here. Goes around. There we go. There's the frill of the nose. Here's kind of your nostril, kind of right in here. We're going to be kind of getting down in here into kind of the lip region here, and then further down. So yeah, you can imagine how everything kind of works itself out. So yeah, just the important thing to know is just kind of working with noses from the side. You really need to get the slope of the forehead compared to the slope of the nose. You need to get this a little divot here, or else it really, really won't look right. That's really, really important. Ball of the nose kind of comes off a little bit at the end of the nose. You're still able to see the nostril from the side view. There's still this little frill here. When shading that, really what you're going to be doing is just adding a little bit more shading in here, coming up, and a little bit more shading around this area. I would put a little bit of shading kind of in the ball of the nose, just to kind of get that all around in there. So yeah, like if we zoom out a little bit, you are able to kind of see the effect that the shading has. It just looks a little bit more realistic. Especially here in this glabella area, you really do want to be getting the shading in there, because that is a very, very dark place that you're going to be filling in. And then there's kind of just the general eye socket area, which too is generally going to be rather dark, except for in the actual eye area. So yeah, you can kind of see how, like, if we zoom out, and so that we don't see all those shading lines, you can kind of see how it is actually looking a little bit more realistic now. I may have put the nose out too far, but I think I'm getting kind of my point across. So yeah, that is an important thing when it comes to drawing noses. Noses, they're rather difficult, and there are many different shapes of them. That's one thing that some people don't really understand. They'll always just kind of do this generic nose, or they'll, or when drawing a nose, they'll kind of make it way too sharp. Some people really like just kind of doing that with their nose and kind of have the frill there. That isn't the way to do it. Like, you can do that if someone has a nose of that shape. You can do that if you're, like, cartooning. There are lots of different shapes, though. That's what you have to understand with noses. Some people have noses that kind of come out like that. Some people just have plain old kind of straight down noses that kind of have kind of a ball at the end. You're always able to see the nostril from kind of the side view. So yeah, that is kind of generally how you're wanting to do your nose. So yeah, I hope that you found this tutorial useful. Let me know if it was useful to you. And yeah, thank you everybody so much for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.